Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 18 of Get Out of the Rat Race Rut. Little coffee toast to my husband there. Saying hello to my Michigan friends today, as you can see my Michigan cup. I'm Beth Anne Campbell. I'm a career coach and mentor. I'm a former corporate captive, now helping you find your work wonderland. So if you need somebody to guide you one-on-one through a career or life challenge, send me a message or go to bethannecampbell.com/coachme. Thank you so much for being here. If you're live, let me know you're here in the comments. If you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay. And of course, make sure to let me know if you have any questions or feedback so I can address it on a future episode. But guess what? Today we're going to go over some of your feedback and questions. Yes, either from this series, topics in this series, or from out there in the social media world, where I've been ranting about corporate life for over a decade now. So we're just going to jump right into it here. We've got some great questions and some great feedback. So on day 8, we talked about preparing for leaving your job, perhaps voluntarily, perhaps not. And this is a question that comes up often. Should you be honest in the exit interview when you leave the company, or should you even do an exit interview? Okay, so let's talk about should you even do the exit interview. So if you don't know an exit, I assume that you all know that an exit interview is where the HR usually interviews you and asks you about your experience, any feedback. So as far as should you even do one, and I will say that I've had 4 job changes in 23 years, and I've only done one exit interview. So I think I've only been asked to do one, but a lot of people are asked to do them. So I would say if everything's great and positive and there's nothing egregious happening, yeah, go ahead and do the interview. It's, can't hurt and it'll make somebody feel good. If there's something happening that's unethical, illegal, harassment, that kind of thing, like there's a reason that you're leaving, hopefully you reported that before you left. But if it's me, I know I'm not going to go back to this place. I know that I don't care. I'm going to do the exit interview and I'm going to be honest. If you're somewhere in the middle, which probably most of you are, then like all things, it just kind of depends. If you don't have any feedback that's either really good or really bad and really needs to be said, then, I guess, what does it gain you, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So if you do decide to do an exit interview, I would ask myself some questions before you get brutally honest, right? Number one, do you give a shit if you're ever going to go back to the company? If you think you might go back someday, or you think, maybe it's a possibility, I would hold back a little bit. I don't know if I would be brutally honest about everything. And I'll talk about my experience about that in a second, because I was honest, but not brutally honest. I would ask, what's your relationship with HR, right? HR, if you're like I was with a small company, HR, we kind of knew a little bit more. With a bigger company, I don't know. I mean, it really, how comfortable you might feel depends on your relationship with your HR. I would ask, is it going to make a difference? Whatever you say, good, bad, or ugly, is it really going to make a difference? And are you going to burn a bridge that might come back to haunt you? And I don't just mean maybe you don't care if you go to that job again, but what about networking? What about somebody that works there, but they heard about it and they have an opportunity, they might not consider you? So those are all things just to consider, and it's your personality too. I mean, just really ask yourself, what are you gaining by being honest in an exit interview? And what are the ramifications, if there are any? And then weigh that before you decide. So the one exit interview that I did, actually I might have done 2, but the other one was not memorable. So I did one exit interview, and I was sort of somewhat honest, but I wasn't brutally honest. I was brutally honest in a podcast and in books about people there, but not to HR in my exit interview. So I basically gave, pretty decent feedback, because I did have a good experience there mostly. But I threw in a few sort of moderate zings. Like I mentioned one person in particular as difficult to work with. I said them by name, but I didn't go to any details. And that was a great example of the question, is it going to make a difference? Because I know 3 other people that left the company. I'm sure there were more that mentioned this particular person when they left. That person still works for the company, and nobody really understands why. They're still making people's lives miserable. So does it make a difference? Sometimes not. I also said in the exit interview that I thought some of the executives were dicks. And yes, I said that. It was a small company. What can I say? And the HR rep for both of these things knew exactly what I was talking about, basically said, you're not the only one, basically agreed with me on both counts. So again, but I've never been brutally honest. I didn't go into any great detail about the dicks, right? and here's why. My world according to Beth, in almost every case, the person who's causing that pain or the toxic person, ultimately they're going to get what they deserve. They're going to get fired. They're going to do something stupid. They're going to get called out. They're going to leave almost 100%. I don't have to do anything with that one exception, but I will say all the people that I called out, the executive dicks, they're not there anymore. So, and even if that doesn't happen, if they don't get what they deserve, do I really need to hold on to that negative energy? And I have no need to get even. So I just didn't bother getting that very brutally honest. Okay, question 2. If I'm leaving my job, do I have to give 2 weeks notice when I resign? No, you do not. Unless you're under a contract where it states as such, and most people in the United States in traditional professional jobs or hourly jobs they don't have a contract. So no, it's not usually required. And honestly, your company maybe doesn't deserve your time. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So I would say this, if you're on good terms and you can give the 2 weeks, it's a nice thing to do, and it could maintain some good relationships, and you never know when those relationships might come in handy, right? Networking. If it's a toxic situation, don't you feel bad for 1 microsecond about being done. That's like the same day that you resign. Don't give it another thought. Just do it. And remember, unless you have a contract, which again, most people in the US do not, and it might not even say something about this if you do, your company can fire you at will, anytime, any day, with 0 notice. And most of us get 0 notice. I got 0 notice, even though I knew months ahead of time, but that's just because I was smarter and more observant than my management team. But I got 0 notice. It was just a meeting showed up on my calendar, and one day, and boom, that was it. So if your shitty company doesn't have to give you 2 weeks of notice when they lay you off, why do you feel like you have to give them notice when you leave? Get the hell out of there and be happy. That's my world according to Beth. This is all a world according to Beth. So question number 3, you've been at your new job for just 1 month, and then you got an offer from another company that you had been interviewing with at the same time, and this other job is way better. Is it unethical to take the other job? No, it's not. Is that enough? It's fine. If you want to take the other job, take it. I will reiterate, unless you have a contract, you are under no obligation to that company. Do what's in your best interests. Of course, I want you to think about it long and hard, but if you decide that other offer, the new offer is the best one, go for it. And if your current company that you're with, that you've been with for a month, if they love you like they should, they'll understand. And I'm not saying they're going to give you glowing reviews, but I guarantee this is not the most outrageous employee thing that they've ever seen happen. So do what's best for you, always. In the words of the immortal Severus Snape, always. All right, number 4. Should you go to HR if you're having challenges with someone or something at work? And people ask this question because of the belief, and really the truth, that HR is not really looking out for you, they're looking out for the company. So my answer to this is yes, but maybe not for the reasons you might think. Go to HR because it's the expected thing to do. And if something happens, you might get asked, why didn't you go to HR? There's a protocol. So I would follow the protocol just for the process trail, and say, in case something does happen, like maybe you get a wrongful termination and you do a suit, or you're trying to work through, they're denying your unemployment, right? I would want you to go through that protocol. But don't expect HR to be helpful at all. And remember, and I will say this with all respect to HR people out there, HR is there to protect the company from liability. They're not there to champion for you, the employee, unless helping you helps the company. And I know there are HR people out there, please don't come at me, bro, that you really do want to help people, and you do help people. But the bottom line is, generally speaking, HR is protecting the company, not you. That is my experience. That is most people's experience. That being said, if you're experiencing a situation like harassment or retaliation or et cetera, yes, do go to HR. And then when you get fired and you have to hire a lawyer to file a wrongful termination suit, then you can say, yes, I went to HR and they did not help. There you go. All right, it's got some comments now. So from number 5, from day 7, when we were talking about what does it mean if you get a bad performance review or you go on a performance improvement plan, usually it means they're trying to get rid of you. This comment comes from my friend Jeannie in Kentucky. Hello, Jeannie. And she says, if you get a bad performance review, I would follow your advice. But I'm one of those, I am so done with this place kind of chicks. So I never thought twice about getting out of there and moving on and moving up. I know my value, and that's imperative in the corporate world and in life. Know yourselves, know your worth. Don't stay where you're not going anywhere. Get out, move on, and always remember that you're the only person holding yourself back. 100%, you just crystallized my thoughts perfectly. I respect that the prospect of losing a job is very scary, and not everybody is in that same mindset to think like this, that you're worth more, that you believe in yourself enough. That's why mindset work is so important. That's why I've talked about it so much, so that you have the confidence to go after whatever you want and not tolerate the bullshit of the world. So thank you, Jeannie, for that comment, because that is like 100% my philosophy is you are the one holding yourself back and you deserve more, right? So don't stay where you're not wanted. All right, from day 5, the office asshat. This is a comment from Stephanie, and I see Stephanie is joining us today too. So Stephanie, this is your comment. I believe this is in response to the person who keeps cutting you off. And Stephanie said, bring the tactics that we use with children to the workplace. They have to be quiet to hear us when we whisper instead of yell. Be the bigger person. It frustrates the other person when we don't lose our cool. 100%. Love it. They act like children, so sometimes we need to treat them as such. And I cannot agree more that when you lose your cool to a toxic person, it can feed them. And nothing is more aggravating than remaining calm, cool, and collected when somebody is trying to get a rise out of you. So yes, well put. From that same episode, Corey Joe had commented, I love your comment that others in a meeting will observe both parties' behavior. Peer social pressure is one of the most powerful things out in the workplace and really in the world. Corporate training, if you are in a corporate environment and you take their training that everybody has to take, it now often includes peer social pressure as a method to counter inappropriate comments or behavior in the workplace. True story, because I've taken corporate training and it's been in several of them. This is why I contend that I didn't get a lot of direct asshat behavior in my corporate life. It was more indirect because they know the people that will call them out. And I think I'm one of them. And the bullies know who they can bully and they know who they can't bully. And the ones who aren't smart enough to think that way, they just end up revealing themselves to the world and like a car alarm that goes off and says, look at me, I'm an insecure dickweed. So the witnesses might not say anything in the moment, but they do notice. Oh, they certainly do notice. So good point, Corey Joe. From day 4, when we talked about stress and how many people have no idea how much stress they're really under, Stephanie, the lovely Stephanie, commented 20 becomes the new default setting, meaning you're at a stress level of 20 on a scale of 1 to 10, and that's your new default. That's your new normal. And I think this is such a great point. We didn't talk about it much during the episode, but when you're under chronic stress, part of the reason that you don't even realize how bad it is because you are at that new normal and you've maybe been there for years or even decades. You're at the 20 on a scale from 1 to 10, and that's what you work under every single day. So it's no surprise that people are just completely unaware of where they are. So, and then from day 13, should I trust my boss? My friend Stella says, my thoughts about this as a freelance business owner are, Stella is not in the corporate world, and I don't think she's been in the corporate world, but she is a business owner, entrepreneur for many, many years. So she has some really good points here. So, as a freelance business owner, how are you, quote, bossing yourself? And as a freelance, it can be tricky if you want to come back later on. So, if you're trusting your boss. And she talks about a problem that she had. She had a singing gig and she spoke out. And one of the leaders was not too fond of having her there. So the result was she had no more short-term contracts. So, to the question of how are you bossing yourself if you're your own boss? So the context of the trust your boss question, was more like, can you trust your boss to tell them certain things, like if you're looking for a job? And obviously, if I'm my own boss, this doesn't apply because I already know. But when we are our own boss, it's a different question because we often have that inner voice and that inner critic. Can I trust myself to make a decision or take a leap or make a change? And that inner voice comes out and the fear is often there, and then our self-image is in play. So when we're our own boss, we have to work more within to make the call on whether we trust ourselves. And in some ways, I think it's even more complicated than when you're dealing with an external person. So that's a really, really great point that Stella made. And then about being a business owner or freelance, how much should you reveal or speak out? Again, it's different than a traditional boss. And that's probably because you're working under a contract, which may or may not cover some of the things that might come up. Stella was referring to speaking out, which may have impacted her relationship in future contracts. And I don't know what she was speaking out about, but any situation is probably a judgment call, or if it's not specifically outlined in your contract. I spoke out a lot with my trusted bosses, but I was more professional with my clients and my business partners because I didn't have the trust that I did with my boss that I worked with every day. Would I reveal the same things to a contract holder if I were under contract as I would a traditional boss? Like, would I reveal if I were dissatisfied or looking for other work? I mean, maybe, depending on the situation. With a contract, the conditions might be more defined because you usually have a set of terms and conditions. Being in a traditional boss-employee relationship, I think, leaves the door more open, I think, because it's less defined and things change. But I would probably still have the same dilemmas. If Stella's dissatisfied with the opera house, should she tell her contract holder that she's looking for for another venue? Even if she plans on holding to her contract, maybe the contract has a clause where either party can terminate with 2 weeks notice. And if she tells them, just like in a regular job, they might push her out early. And because we're talking about different relationship and with contract, and I'm not a contract expert, so there's probably a lot of things to consider with a contract. But it's a great point because so many people are their own boss now. So, and you do have clients and they kind of become your boss. So, all right. And then finally, I think this is finally, from yesterday's session on gratitude at work, Stephanie says, we can see/feel the results of gratitude sooner than other habits we can more easily weave into our day. When we're working our gratitude, our heart and our eyes are more open to it. Our focus is on the positive, not the negative. Could not agree more. Gratitude is so easy. You can do it privately. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in your head, and it counters the negative. That is why it is so powerful. So, okay, well, that is all of my questions and feedbacks for today. I'm going to go to the comments because I see Miss Stephanie here. She always has the great comments. She says, I can second what you said about HR. They're hired by the company, and so it makes sense that they would do what they have to do to keep their job too. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not coming down on HR people. I have had many wonderful HR representatives, and I know Stephanie's not either. But I've also had dealings with them with my own. I had an issue where I was called into a very serious, not my words, this is compliance, very serious investigation because I mocked up my depressed team members into badass Lego characters, cartoons, and put them outside of my desk. And that's what I got in trouble for. Because what if it's harassment? Even though they helped me with it. But anyway, so I've had my dealings with HR. And again, I know I didn't feel like they were championing for me. I felt like it was, in fact, it was told. I was like, when they finally explained why they had to, quote, punish me which my punishment was a paid day off and I had to write a letter. That was it. Um, that's a whole other story. I should tell that story, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, when they finally tried to explain why they had to come down so hard, it was because of company liability. It was because what if somebody has to go on a performance improvement plan and then they get mad at me and claim that I was harassing them. And I kind of get it, but I just have heard so many stories from people who it's just really clear when push comes to shove, they will. I know there are a lot of great HR people out there that are definitely doing great work and looking out for you. But when push comes to shove, and it's, even if it's the right thing to do, if it's going to hurt the company, then you know which way that HR is going to go. So, I don't want to keep talking about HR because I know HR people and they are like great people. So, oh, Stephanie says, I'm loving your thoughts on all the comments. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I've gotten some really great comments and from you and others. And I love getting the feedback, and I love, although I think I have a scammer in one of my comments on Facebook that I'm trying to figure out right now. But you know what? That comes with the territory. I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate all of your comments. Thank you so much. Keep them coming. We've got another 12 episodes to go, and I'm going to do, on the final day, I'm going to do a wrap up. And if we have some more questions and comments, then I'll definitely pull them out there. So, okay, thanks again. Tomorrow we're going to talk about brain fog and how it impacts your work and career. I'm telling you, if you're a woman and you're over 40, you've probably experienced brain fog before. I know I have. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So thank you again. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn if you're not already. And thanks for joining Get Out of the Rat Race Rut. You are all here because you are a badass. You are badasses. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I will see you tomorrow. Bye, Stephanie.